Kennedy Space Center is one of my favorite places to visit in all of Florida, and if you've never been, I highly recommend it, especially if you have any interest or curiosity at all in space, NASA, or history, or maybe you just like walking around looking at cool stuff while learning a few things. This place is fascinating, and I think it's a place that anybody living in Florida or visiting Florida should try to visit at least once. If you're thinking of heading over there for a visit, you might want to check out my video called 5 Things to Know Before You Go to Kennedy Space Center to get a good idea of how to plan your day and what to expect. And in that video, one of the things I mentioned is that Kennedy Space Center really does deserve a full day because there is lots to see and do. You don't want to be rushed, and you want to see as much as you can to get your money's worth. But sometimes things happen. The morning gets away from you, you get stuck in traffic, or something else caused you to get here a little later than you'd like, and you want to cram it all in. But hey, no worries. You can still have a great day here. My family recently spent a full day at Kennedy Space Center, and we narrowed down our favorite must-see things here so you can get the most out of your day here and see all the best that this really cool place has to offer. So here's our Kennedy Space Center top 5 must-do attractions. Okay, so I don't think I'm going to do this list in the order of 5th best to 1st best, but in the order that I think kind of makes the most sense for both time and just getting the most out of your visit. You can, of course, do these in any order. This is just my own take, and it really doesn't matter all that much. So feel free to enjoy the place like you want to, but these are just some of my own personal takes and opinions based on our recent visit out here. All right, first thing you're not going to want to miss is the Kennedy Space Center bus tour. The Kennedy Space Center bus tour is a big part of the experience of visiting this place. If you come out here and don't do the tour, you really kind of missed out on a lot, and I would recommend doing this kind of early in the day because this will take up quite a bit of your time here, and it does close earlier than everything else here. It would be a big bummer to wait to do this later in the day only to get shut out, so make plans to do this pretty early if you can. The Kennedy Space Center bus tour will take you for a ride in some really comfortable modern buses from the Visitor Center and towards the launch pads, where you'll get a much closer look at the launch pads, and you'll drive right past the massive Vehicle Assembly Building. This is one of the largest buildings in the world by volume, and they'll rattle off all kinds of fun facts about it that I'm not going to give away here because I want to save some of the fun for the tour if you decide to do this. And most days out here, you'll even get to see one of the crawler transporter vehicles that carries the fully assembled rockets from the Vehicle Assembly Building to one of the launch pads at a blistering 1 mile per hour. Something else to know about the bus tours, though, is that if there's a planned launch in the near future, like in the next few days or so, you might not get as close a look at some of the launch pads as you might like. You'll kind of see them from a distance. I've been on this tour twice, and the first time it was a little bit longer and we got pretty close to some of the launch pads. But on this most recent trip we just took, there was a SpaceX Falcon Heavy out on one of the pads getting prepped for launch, so we weren't able to get quite as close, probably for security reasons or something like that. But even if that's the case and you can't get really close to the launch pads, the bus tour is really worth doing. It's really interesting to drive around the entire area, and weirdly enough, most of it is fairly empty. Most of it is like nature preserve. Next is the Apollo Saturn V Center. Another reason you're really going to want to take the bus tour is because it's the only way to get to what I think is easily my favorite thing here, the Apollo Saturn V Center. About midway through the tour, the bus will make a stop out here, and you can get off the bus to check this place out, and you'll definitely want to do that. This is a building here at Kennedy Space Center that's dedicated to everything about the Apollo program. That was the NASA program that created the Saturn V rocket and landed men on the moon. You may already know a little bit about this history. Apollo 11 with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landing on the moon. The successful failure of Apollo 13, and sadly the tragedy of Apollo 1 all have parts of their stories told here. The entire exhibit starts with a pre-show where you'll witness a reenactment of the launch of Apollo 8 from the actual firing room, and this is honestly one of my single favorite things to watch in this entire place, and it's one of my favorite moments at Kennedy Space Center. This pre-show they do here is great. I don't want to give away any surprises, but they did such a good job with this, and it really sets the tone and sets the mood for the rest of the exhibit. After that, you'll walk through a set of doors to be greeted with the sight of an actual Saturn V rocket. This is the largest rocket ever built, And yeah, this thing is absolutely massive. It has got to be one of the largest pieces of technology I've ever seen in person. The different stages are all displayed on the ceiling, and it just keeps going and going and going across the entire hangar. The rest of this building is full of little pieces of history from the Apollo program, spacesuits worn by the astronauts, capsules that have been to space and back, and an actual moon rock that you can touch. And there's another theater-type show in here that you won't want to miss that reenacts the first moon landing in very dramatic fashion. And you know, I saw a lot of people just skipping past this to the exits, but don't do that. Do not be one of those people. This show is worth it. Next thing you're not going to want to miss is the Space Shuttle Atlantis. The Space Shuttle Atlantis exhibit is another one that you don't want to miss, and you really can't even miss it if you tried. The huge rocket boosters and orange fuel tank are visible from all over the park, and it's one of the first things you'll see when you drive up. This exhibit is another one you'll need to wait in a little short line to enter because there are 2 pre-shows before the main attraction, but it's well worth the time and really sets the tone for the rest of the exhibit. I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm not going to give anything away here other than say that these pre-shows are great. I know I say that a lot, but they really do a great job in setting the tone for what you're about to see and building up some of your appreciation for it too. And then once inside, you'll get an up-close look at Space Shuttle Atlantis, which flew 33 missions in space between 1985 and 2011. This entire building is all about the shuttle program from its development to its retirement, and it's full of interactive things to see and do, like sitting in a recreation of the space shuttle's cockpit to taking off in a simulated shuttle launch. And yeah, that's right, there's a ride in here, and it's actually a really good one. The 8.5-minute shuttle launch experience will let you feel what it's like to launch into orbit on the space shuttle. I can't believe it either, but one of the best motion simulator rides in Florida isn't at Disney or Universal, it's right here instead. You really don't want to miss this if you can do rides. If you are prone to motion sickness and stuff like that, you may want to skip this, but if not, and you want to have a little bit of a thrill while you're here, don't miss the shuttle launch experience. It's great. Next on our list is the IMAX Movie. And IMAX movies are something you can do in lots of places, but here the IMAX Movie is included in your admission, and this is something that you really can squeeze in at any time of the day, but I do think it's one of the must-do things here because not only is it a great way to get off your feet and in the air conditioning for 45 minutes, it's a really great show. The film does change from time to time, but the one that we saw during our visit was called Deep Sky. It's a documentary type film full of some truly jaw-dropping images captured by the James Webb Telescope that takes you on a journey into the deepest and oldest reaches of space. We actually went in here hoping to maybe catch a little nap, to be honest. It had been a bit of a long day already, but this film blew us away. Nobody took a nap, and it was one of the highlights of the day. But be warned, this movie will make you feel small, like really, really small, like a tiny speck of dust small. But it's great, very awe-inspiring. And lastly, the Heroes and Legends Astronaut Hall of Fame. This museum building is right up at the entrance of the visitor center, so it's also one of the last buildings you'll see when heading out, and I think this makes it a nice little send-off as you leave for the day. The Heroes and Legends Astronaut Hall of Fame is one of the buildings here that does have a line you need to wait to get into, and it's followed again by 2 different pre-shows in 2 different rooms before they let you into the main exhibit. But each of these pre-shows are so well done, once again, and such a cool experience in their own right that I hate to even call them pre-shows. More like a hype reel for the museum that sets the stage before you go in. The second one is like a multi-sensory theater that wraps around you and it's multiple levels and really, really cool. Seriously, some of these pre-shows are so good I think Disney or Universal could take a few things from them. Once you're in the museum, you'll find a collection of personal items that belong to some of the space program's most famous astronauts. Things like John Glenn's flight goggles, Jim Lovell's Boy Scout handbook and merit badges, Gus Grissom's spacesuit, and even Buzz Aldrin's 9th grade report card. Not bad, Buzz. And quite a bit of things here from the early beginnings of manned spaceflight, like a Redstone Mercury rocket and the Gemini 9 capsule. This museum full of astronaut artifacts leads to the Astronaut Hall of Fame. It's a room that honors the best men and women that the space program has ever produced, surrounding a statue of Alan Shepard, the first American in space. This was really cool, but I do kind of wish that each of these astronauts in here had some kind of plaque or something telling us a little bit more about them. It did have the patches for the different missions they'd been on, but there wasn't really much detail beyond that. So maybe just a few sentences, maybe letting us know where they're from, maybe some notable stuff they did in the space program that led them to be inducted to the Astronaut Hall of Fame would have been nice. Some of these names need no introduction, of course, and the average person will be able to recognize at least a few of the names here, but for the average person coming in here who's not a total NASA nerd, it would be nice to read a little bit more about them. The reason I put this one last is because after you've spent the day here seeing all the exhibits, watching some of the movies and shows, going on the tour, reading the displays and soaking it all in, by the time you get here, you'll probably have at least a bit of a bigger appreciation for the space program and those who made it possible. And this museum will land just a little bit harder and be a bit more meaningful once you've been through the whole rest of the place. You'll recognize more of the names here just by spending the rest of the day at Kennedy Space Center, and I think it's a really good note to end the day on when you see the Astronaut Hall of Fame. So those are our top 5 attractions, and there are some other things here that are definitely worth seeing, and you should try to make time for all of them if you can. The Rocket Garden near the entrance of the park is something you'll probably spend some time in no matter what. Hard to miss that. You're going to want to walk through it just going from one thing to another. Some of the other exhibits won't take quite as much time, so you can just kind of leisurely check those out in between some of the other stuff. Gateway is the newest exhibit here that focuses on the current and near future space travel technology, and there's another motion simulator ride in here too. Journey to Mars is all about NASA's missions that sent rovers and other robots to explore the Red Planet, and about our future plans to go back there, with humans possibly sometime. And Planet Play is a huge elaborate kid zone that those of you bringing small kids along might want to hang out in for a little bit. Please let me know in the comments if you've ever been here, what you thought about it, what some of your favorite things to see and do were here. I actually really love this place. I think it's a great spot for anybody who lives in Florida or visiting Florida to try to make it out to at least once. Even for a launch, if you go out here on a launch day, it is going to be a little bit busy, and the bus tour actually does not run on launch days. So you may want to consider that if you are thinking about coming out here for a launch, and it's a lot busier and a lot more traffic on those days too. Anyway, if you love this kind of stuff, you want to learn about more fun things to do all around Florida, please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you'll be notified the next time I post a video, and take it easy. We'll talk to you next time.